Hi everyone, Aiden here with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at and later be showing you how to install this Curt 4-pole wiring harness on our 2014 BMW 3 Series. This is a universal kit which I would normally stray away from just because they can be more involved and it's designed to work on really any vehicle. But in the case of this 3 Series here today, the installation was surprisingly smooth. Because the battery's in the back of the vehicle, you don't have to run much wiring, and everything's very accessible for a clean install, so that's a big benefit. And then, of course, you get your 4-pole wiring. So if you're looking to tow a small trailer, or maybe you have an accessory like a bike rack that has lighting functions on the back, you can plug into that 4-pole and get things like running lights, brake lights, and turn signals. Now, this does come with a dust cap to protect it from the elements, and is designed to be mounted either on the outside or inside the vehicle. In the case of the 3 Series here today, it worked better on the outside, and we just used the dust cap to mount it to the safety chain loop on our hitch. And there's going to be an inline module box to help prevent any backfeeding. So if there's any issues on the trailer side or on the vehicle side for that matter, they don't translate to one another and don't cause any issues. It's going to come with pretty much everything you need. The one addition I would say is to pick up some heat shrink butt connectors. The kit doesn't come with heat shrink, just regular, and because the taillights and all of our connections are going to be on the outside of the vehicle rather than being accessed through the interior, those connections are going to be a little bit more exposed to the elements, and having that heat shrink is going to protect them in the long run. Aside from that, it is going to be a pretty straightforward process. Again, because everything's on the outside, it's relatively easy to get to and to see. So visibility is not going to be too bad, and all you got to do is find a way to route your power wire inside the vehicle to that battery, which is also pretty straightforward. Walk you through the whole process inside the shop right now. Start with your trunk open, and on the inside, there's going to be this small knob that we can rotate counterclockwise and remove this whole panel. Now this will have our battery underneath that we can use to connect to power eventually. I'm going to just leave that there for now and turn my attention actually to the tail light. So on here, there's going to be one connector up top that you might be able to spin free, but more than likely you'll probably need something like a trim panel tool to kind of pop under here and pry that out. It's a pretty basic connector, so it should come out no problem. And then this whole panel can get removed too. Set it to the side safely because it will get reinstalled, and we can undo these nuts with a 10mm socket. Now once you have both of these nuts removed by hand, set those to the side, and the whole taillight housing can just come out by grabbing it somewhere where you've got a good handle on it and just pull it straight back. There's going to be 3 tabs on the front, or rather just one tab. That's a third point of connection near the front that just pulls straight back out. And for you at home, you can disconnect this connector by pressing down on the tab on top and just pulling straight back to test your wires. Now just repeat that process on the driver's side and disconnect that tail light to make it easier to work with. And at this point, you can test your wires. If you don't have a test light, you can pick one up here at etrailer. And we already tested our lights, so we know that this purple wire here with the small stripe on it is our running light signal. This third wire, the black with the white, is going to be our left turn signal. And the black with the yellow wire is going to be our brake. Then on the passenger side, we're going to have one wire that we marked off with some painter's tape. That'll be our right turn signal. And that wire on the passenger side will be black with a small purple stripe. Be careful you don't mix it up with the black with the blue stripe. The two look fairly similar, so just watch out for that. But it'll be located kind of in the middle between the brown and the other black wire with the stripe. We actually decided to mount the module box just behind the taillight here. There's a very specific orientation where this can fit flat right there. There's a small dimple in the sheet metal, and we'll mount it just to the left of that by about an inch or so, and it'll fit behind the taillight housing. But before we mount it up, I want to do a little bit of prep work. So we've got our 4-pole fed down through most of the way, and I want to extend my black power wire using the wire provided in the kit and have it follow that 4-pole wire down. So first things first, I'm gonna just strip a little bit of that sheathing back, twist those wires together, and we'll add our butt connector to the end and crimp it down. Now for our connection, we're using a heat shrink butt connector. Those don't come in your kit, but we recommend them just because it's gonna help make a stronger connection, but also protect against the elements. Then repeat that process for the other end of our black wire. And we'll use a heat gun to shrink down that butt connector. Took the other end of our extended black wire, taped it to that 4-pole, and I'll just pull it out through the bottom so that all of our slack is pulled through, and we now have the black wire down here. With everything pulled through, I just went ahead and separated my wires. So these ones are the ones that go down through to the outside of the vehicle. These ones are the ones that'll stay up top for now. And I want to just keep my eye on them so I know where they are. Line this up as best I can with where we kind of mocked it up. And I'll run a self-tapping screw that's included in your kit through that hole into the sheet metal. Now the first thing I'm going to mess with here is my green wire, because that's going to be the easiest. There's going to be a gap right next to the module box that we can tuck this underneath, tucking it under the gasket, all the way over to the passenger side of the vehicle, where it will serve as the wire for our right turn signal. Next up is our white wire, which will be our ground. We'll attach that right next to the sheet metal, or right next to the module box on the sheet metal as well, using, again, the included self-tapping screw. We're ready to start splicing into our factory wiring. To give myself a little more room to work, I'm going to peel back the electrical tape, just so I've got more wire to work from and I can cut further up away from that connector. I'm going to start with my black and yellow wire, which, as we tested earlier, is our brake signal. And on our module box, that's going to coordinate with our red wire. All those codes can be found on the module box itself, which, where we mounted it, luckily, is very visible. So we'll start by making that cut right about there. And I'll strip back the ends of those wires. Now on the connector side, I'm going to strip back a bit more so that I can double it over whenever we make our connection, because it is a very thin wire. And on the other side, we'll strip back the red wire as well. And this one is going to get twisted together with the factory wiring that we left a bit shorter. So bring those two ends together and twist them together as best I can. There we go. Again, we're going to be using heat shrink butt connectors here, just for the weather protection. And if you have issues, just make sure you twist it together really well so they stay together. We'll get that butt connector on there and crimp it down just like we did before. And with all these connections, once I crimp it down, I'm just going to tug on the wire to verify that I made a good connection and just continue from there. That one that we stripped back more of, like we mentioned, is going to get doubled over so that it fits better in this butt connector. Same thing, we'll crimp it down. And once we've verified the connection is good, we can shrink it. Now we're going to repeat that same process for the black and white wire, which will go to the yellow wire from our module box, and the purple wire, which will go to the brown wire from our module box. And then on the passenger side, that green wire will go to the one wire that we flagged. Since we have so much excess on the passenger side, I am going to trim this short. I really didn't trim anything on the driver's side because I wanted some slack that you could pull the taillight out still. Some of the prep work we did earlier while we were finding a place for that module box was actually removing this panel here. So I'll just talk you through what we did. There's going to be some 8mm screws, 3 on the bottom, and 2 on the inner side of the wheel well here, and then 1 12mm nut that's located on a factory stud straight up, kind of on the inside edge of that panel. So it drops down pretty easily. I'm just going to set it to the side for now, and that's what exposes all of this for us. And you'll also notice that we have a new airline tube run through pretty close to where our 4-pole and our black power wire is coming down. There was a small grommet right there that we just removed, same as what's right here. Poked the airline up through, and that's what's going to let us get into the trunk of our vehicle. So what we'll do is just tape the other end of our black power wire to that airline tube and pull that up through to get it inside where it will eventually run over and connect to our battery. One thing I will do before taping this to our pull wire is taking the grommet, I drill a small hole through it, and I'm going to feed my black power wire up through that. I can tape it to the airline tube, so as I'm pulling it up through, that grommet will go back into its home. I'll come back through and seal it up as well. But that way we maintain that factory seal. I'll just push it up into position and make sure that grommet goes back into its home. There we go. And I'll go back up top to pull all the slack through. While I'm down here though, I am going to route my 4-pole, which for us, we've got this bumper beam support. I'm going to feed it over top of that so it's really far away from our exhaust. I'll try to keep my hands out of the way as best I can. And we'll zip tie it periodically as we find our path here. From there, I'm probably just going to keep it on top of the hitch. And it'll eventually find its home right here next to our receiver tube, and I'll tie the excess up probably to the back fascia here. And here's the final path that our wiring took, just zip tying it to the hitch periodically. Our excess is up here, and I did leave some slack that I kind of just tucked under the hitch here, so that if we needed to, we could pull this out a bit to connect to our trailer, but we can always zip tie more if we need to. And I just used the included dust cap to hook this onto the safety chain loop. So we've lifted up all this paneling inside of our trunk, and the battery's already exposed on the passenger side, but here's the excess power wire we pulled up through. It came up in that cavity on the driver's side. We fed it under this carpet here, and it popped out in the middle. We're just going to keep following it over to that passenger side, feeding it under this carpet here, where it'll pop out by the battery on the passenger side. With that wire fed up into the battery compartment, I'm just going to kind of mock it up, see how much excess I need. Keep in mind the fuse holder will be in here too, but I'll give myself some slack, so I'll trim it right about there. I can always trim off more if I need to. The fuse holder is going to come looped together, so we're just going to cut it down the middle. Strip back both ends like we've been doing. One end will get a butt connector and join up with our power wire. The other end will get the included ring terminal. Get that nut taken off of our positive post. Pop our ring terminal over. Tighten that nut down. And the final thing we'll do in here is just add our fuse. Now that that's closed up, we can button things back up. I'm going to reattach the taillights first, test for functionality and make sure everything's working, and then we can button up all the other panels that we removed during this process. Now we've got a 4-pole tester connected to our wiring and we can test our functions. First up, we've got our running lights, then we have our brakes, then our left turn, and our right turn. After verifying everything works, we can take all those other panels and get them reattached and just button things up. But that'll complete our look at and installation of this Curt wiring harness on our 2014 BMW 3 Series. Thanks for watching.